For this conversation, I am joined by Mike Henderson, American founder and CEO of B.A.G Travel, which is, quote, a premier group travel consulting firm specializing in crafting immersive and transformative travel experience, end quote. In 2022, it was selected by New World Report as New World Report's 2022 Awards Best Emerging Travel Agency, California. Congratulations. With over 20 years of expertise in the travel industry, along with a background in urban planning, Mike is dedicated to helping travelers to explore the world in meaningful ways. B.A.G Travel's services include group travel planning, culture immersion, experiences designed to connect travelers with local communities and traditions, and adventure and luxury travel. Mike has visited over 35 countries, and I was fortunate to meet up with him during his most recent visit to Cape Town, South Africa. I look forward to learning more about who Michael is and how he uses his professional credentials and travel experiences to broaden the horizons of Black citizens throughout the world. Hey, Mike, and welcome. How are you?
I'm doing great, Eric. Thanks for the nice intro. Yeah, it was definitely a pleasant meeting you in Cape Town. Now it's my favorite city in the world for some obvious reasons, which we'll talk about later. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, when I reached out to you a few weeks ago and you said, oh, we can do this after you get back from Cape Town, I was like, well, okay. Well, maybe we could meet up because I'm here too.
It's a hot city. It's going to get even hotter.
Okay. Is that because of your travel agency?
No, all of the above. Not just the travel agency. I'm focusing on South Africa as one of my frequent travel group destinations. There's so much going on right now as far as business, real estate, and tourism. I mean, it's the hot city right now, and definitely want to get in early, take advantage of the hospitality. South African people are so nice, and it breaks stereotypes. You know, let's be frank, some Black Americans, maybe we have a perception of Africa as a whole, African countries. So that's part of my mission, is to break those stereotypes. You have to see for yourself. So that's part of what I want to facilitate.
For this most recent visit, how long were you here?
2 weeks, mostly business, meeting with some real estate developers, commercial developers. I toured the incredible Amazon campus that they're building. It looks like a mid-sized city from the way it's going. So I think it'll open in like another year and a half. It's just a catalyst of what's to come for Cape Town.
Now, when you say Amazon, you mean the website, the corporation?
Correct. Amazon Africa headquarters is in Cape Town, and it's just 5 minutes from downtown. So as far as my urban planning nerdism, you're reducing the commute time for sure. The beach is like literally 5 minutes away as well. So Cape Town is it's the jewel of the travel industry right now, and I definitely want to plug into that avenue and keep it going.
Now, are you part of the development and planning with Amazon, with your background in urban development?
You can view me as feeding off of it, let's put it that way, which is what a lot of people who are moving there, what a lot of people who are investing in that city are doing. As you know, everywhere you look, it's literally can turn around. It's hard to find a bad view. It's like 360 degrees of tourist paradise.
Now, you just recently returned to Los Angeles. Maybe just to kind of get us settled into things, how has it been transitioning back to life back in LA?
I was born and raised here, so not much of a transition other than putting things in perspective. I'm still based in LA for part of the year. I have business contacts here, friends, family. Certainly one of the greatest cities in the world. In my opinion, it is the most influential city in the world. If you count entertainment, you count urban planning, you count the aerospace industry, technology, etc. But the beauty about what I'm trying to point out with my groups and my travel company is be a world citizen. So you don't necessarily have to root yourself in one place. We talked about that when we met in Cape Town, as far as the old mentality of, hey, you know, you have to do this and that in a certain order, and you work for this one company for 50 years and you retire and you travel when you're 80. It's refreshing to see a lot of the younger generation realizing that, hey, you're a world citizen, you can move around. You don't have to restrict yourself. COVID revealed a lot of that as well, where you can work remotely. Wherever you could think you can live your best life, don't be afraid to try it.
It's great to hear someone like you who's spearheading that and educating and encouraging people to expand their horizons. And to touch on B.A.G Travel, I have to say I like your tagline, your adventure designer. Can you share about the travel agency?
The travel agency itself, I started in 2021. I incorporated in 2021. Before that, I was doing group trips for friends, family, coworkers, even word of mouth for about 15 years before that. Just taking
Oh,
groups around the world, just saying, hey, I'm going somewhere. Who wants to go with me? It was just like, hey, it was just fun for me. It didn't seem like work. Obviously, I realized the benefits of actually incorporating and the avenues that open up with vendors and the deals I can give my clients it's incomparable to what it was before. So I'm very happy with it. It is a vehicle to support my social groups as well. As of today, I have over 20,000 members. The main group is Black, Gay, and Lesbian Travelers. It's bgltravelers.com. So B.A.G. Travel is the service arm for that, where Black, Gay, and Lesbian Travelers is a social travel group. We exchange, tips, information about travel. I post relocation possibilities. I like to make it not just about looking at monuments and taking a few photos and getting back on the plane and going on. I actually like people to learn something about where they are and why they came there. I want people to talk to locals. If there's a place we go to where there's Black expat groups, like for example, there's groups in South Africa, there's like 3, I believe. And one of my team members is the leader and founder of Black in Portugal. One of my purposes of travel is to educate Black travelers about globalism, about exploring other places, about investing in other places, even if it's part-time roots in other places, being more than just a consumer, which I think is a huge problem where there's nothing lasting from that. It's just spin and show some pictures on wherever platform and show off and pretend I have a lot of money. Even if you do, it's like, it seems very superficial when a lot of that effort and expense could also go towards building something lasting. When I say adventure designer, adventure means not just looking, it's doing and being.
I'm definitely that type of traveler. The first time I left the US was on a high school trip, my senior year of high school. And I think that was the first time I'd flown a plane from Phoenix to LA and then LA to London. When we started to do our tours in London and we went to the Hard Rock Cafe, and I was incredibly annoyed. I
Oh,
was like, I could do this back home. You
yeah.
know, my dad used to say, I want to see the mom and pop stores. I want to see those places that the locals go to, because that's where I think you really get a feel for the city. And your business model, what I hear is you're immersing people in the experience. And I would imagine you're ahead of the game in the travel industry because you're very business minded.
It's a business, but at the same time, I don't want it to just be about money. Don't get me wrong, I charge. But with my social groups, I do try to make the events accessible, like payment plans. So it's things like that where money isn't necessarily a barrier. I use my business part in terms of making really good contacts with vendors, suppliers, etc., to see if I can get the best rates, the best deals for my members and my clients for B.A.G. Travel. So the term business doesn't just mean money to me. It means creating the opportunity for people to enjoy the world outside of the world that they're used to, and for people to step outside of themselves. You can't grow unless that mechanism actually making transit happens. I view the business apparatus as creating value as well. I want you to take something that'll follow you the rest of your life. Memory is not just monuments, let's put it that way.
You share a lot of information and you started the business, the travel agency in 2021. What was your knowledge of the industry outside of being a traveler before you started your travel agency, B.A.G. Travel?
As far as the industry, I was familiar with the travel agency from the brick and mortar standpoint. It's totally transformed now. For example, I'm building my team. Toward the end of this year, I have a goal of having 100 members, 100 plus members under my team as travel agents. I would say easily 80 to 90% of travel agents around the world are remote, which is the way it should be. I mean, we have access to so many tools that doesn't necessarily require you be chained to a desk. So one of the things I do try to get people to understand is if you book something, anything, like even if you get on yourself or like you think you're the most excellent travel researcher, everything you book, you're acting as a travel agent, number one. And the travel agent commission is already baked into every price you're looking at, whether they tell you or not.
Oh, wow.
If you're a company, let's say you're a huge hotel chain, you're a huge airline, you're a huge cruise company, etc., why would you only limit yourself to spending billions of dollars every year on TV, radio, social media commercials that may or may not hit because they're not personal to people, as opposed to paying actual people who are on the ground, who know other people, who develop those personal relationships? They always bake that advertising budget in, which is another word for the travel agent commission. So that's part of their advertising model. It makes perfect sense. You are acting like a travel agent. You're just not getting paid for it. So I try to bring that home to people. It's just like Vegas. You can't beat the house. To them, it's advantageous for people like me, like companies like me, and they give incentives as well for us to reach out and make these personal relationships with people. Because travel is emotional. It's hard to connect with people emotionally if you don't see them face to face. That's unbeatable.
I was on your website, bagtravel.net. Similar to your YouTube channel, I like the footage on there. Is that also from some of your travels, the video footage?
Admittedly, you're talking to someone who is not really a fan of social media. And I was one of those kids who you had to like drag me kicking and screaming to take a picture. As I got older, I realized it was a necessary evil. As I get more and more trips pumped out, I try to, post my content on there. On the YouTube channel, we have a TikTok channel. Like if you go to B.A.G Travel Group on Instagram or Black, Gay, and Lesbian Travelers on Instagram, you would see the link tree with all our different social media handles. I'm trying to pump out as much as I can to get people hyped up, and 2025 is going to be incredible.
You've touched on this already, but I just wanted to share this quote from a publication in Travel and Leisure. You're quoted as saying, "I've made it my mission to encourage more Black LGBTQ travels like me to explore the world." That's a very specific demographic. Can you maybe add a little bit more on that?
Well, taking it up a level, Black travelers, period. I took that as a base because I forgot the source, but the last stat I looked at was at least in the United States, 36% of Black adults have a passport. Only 36%. In comparison to other ethnicities, I think the next highest one was 54%. I started that as a base, and as on a personal level, being in touch with the LGBTQ community, there's not enough representation in terms of advertising toward the Black LGBTQ traveler. We know certain like cruise events and certain, the circuit parties and all that, but not necessarily. You look at the imaging, the marketing, it's not really speaking to us. So I put those two elements together: lack of travel, lack of ability to travel with the passport, and lack of marketing toward Black LGBTQ community, to try to facilitate travel and also work with these organizations to put out content that speaks to the Black LGBTQ traveler. I'd say the third component is creating a safe space where a lot of us want to travel. They want to meet other Black LGBTQ people in a safe environment that they could travel with. Quite frankly, that's the catalyst for me creating B.A.G Travel, is to accomplish those three things.
I interviewed Janice Bailey out of Baltimore, Maryland of Soul Journey Travel. She mentioned with the advertising, she's sharing that now. I got the vision of the ads. It's usually white men in Speedos, and the importance of seeing our images or seeing ourselves, or like you sharing about the safety. I think of just the emotional safety, because I've been asked by non-Black friends to go on those types of cruises, and I'm like, it's the last thing I want to do, just because I want to feel safe emotionally.
Some might find that as an opportunity. They just like they want to be the only one. I don't get into that. I'll add a fourth element to it. Does LGBTQ travel always have to be, you mentioned like the speedos and the drinking and all that, but I want people to get a little bit more from that, like develop something lasting. You go somewhere to learn about where you are. You go somewhere to meet different kinds of people. It's the stereotype of LGBTQ travel as always being like a sex cruise or a sex party. The ones of us who don't necessarily identify with that all the time, we don't necessarily have a community that we can join that's not involving that all the time.
You've been featured in a lot of great publications, but I liked what you said on pinktickettravel.com, that people of color can face many kinds of racism as they move through the world, but they can also have overly suspicious ideas about how they'll be treated in different regions or cultures. For me, someone like you is a great resource, a great person to talk to and to plan my travel because I have done some traveling and I'm like, oh, it's not as scary as you think it is. But at the same time, there's certain places that I'm still kind of apprehensive to go to. So to have someone like you to help me with my travel decision is really good.
A lot of your instincts could be right. You know, you could be apprehensive for a reason. There's certain countries that you definitely don't want to go to if you don't want to feel as if you're being watched all the time, or feel as if you're in danger of getting arrested as soon as you walk out of your hotel room. That shouldn't be what travel is about. It should be about comfort. I put an asterisk to that too. Number one, you have to get out of your comfort zone first, and then you seek somewhere where you feel comfortable. If it's just about comfort, you'll never leave home. If you see someplace that speaks to you and you want to go deeper each time, meet different kinds of people, to explore different areas, even if you've only been to one other country in the world besides your home country, that place helps you grow as a person. I would say do that. Don't be travel shamed. Let's put it that way, which I think is a trend as well.
When we met up near the water, we weren't talking about travel for the whole conversation. I did notice that you interacted with the staff. You made it personal. And I say that because, especially in countries in Africa, some people have said, oh, the safaris and da 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 and all this stuff. But yeah, hearing you talk to the waiter and then the dessert that was brought and finding out about the history of the dessert, for me, that was interesting and added to the experience.
I don't want people just to, like, when they go somewhere and they have tour guides, they have people they meet, like even the Uber driver, Lyft driver, whatever, the waiters, waitresses, the hotel staff. Don't just look at them as hands handing you something. Look at their face, look at their eyes, talk to them. They're people. So that's what I want people to pull out of travel. They're not your servants. You're their guest. Talk to them, get to know them. That gives you a sense of realism that helps you appreciate even more where you are or where you come from.
Now, do you also have clients that are not LGBT or Black?
Yes, B.A.G. Travel is the general travel agency. I have clients who are not necessarily LGBTQ or Black. That's the avenue that I use to create general trips, and then I might take my general group trips and customize it a little bit for my social groups, where I might add some particularly LGBTQ content on top of that. But so the answer is
Okay.
yes. It's I keep it general as well.
I've mentioned a couple quotes from publications that you've been featured in, and you've been featured in quite a few. Of course, there's New World Report, and then Vacationer, Travel Weekly, and Afar, in addition to other publications. For somebody who's been in this industry for less than 5 years, how does that feel to see your efforts being recognized?
Feels pretty good. I was definitely honored to be in those publications. They actively sought me out, and I appreciate that. Even avenues, I'm on the executive board of the Black Travel Expo. There's a lot of media contacts there that I meet. I spoke there last year at the expo, like on a panel of Black men in travel. So I met a lot of them after that presentation I did. So it's definitely fun. It helps me get the word out. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I'll definitely work with more media partners who are interested in getting the word out as well. And it's great content for me, for sure. It's great exposure, and I'm happy that I've had that opportunity so early in the actual official incorporation part of it. Like I said, I've been doing it over 20 years, but the actual label and logo and business filing, that's relatively young.
Before you founded BAG Travel, what were you doing professionally?
I was working with several cable companies like AT&T, Comcast, Media One, Continental, basically the cable TV industry in senior management and engineering. I always did the travel thing kind of if I'm going on vacation, then I would bring people, but it was never really work until like the last 3 years where I actually turned it into a job. I kept my Fortune 500 role pretty much the entire time, but these days I'm semi-retired and strictly running the travel company and the social groups. I don't consider those last two work at all. Just think of the world as like a canvas to me, and I just like get my little brush and I try to paint some wonderful experiences for people, and I don't consider that work at all. It's a passion. Don't get me wrong. I have a passion for it, but the word work is a loaded term. It means not necessarily something you have passion for and that you're forced to do. I'm honored to have clients and group members who appreciate what I do. So
How long were you doing that work?
close to 30 years in the cable industry. Yep.
The fact that you're semi-retired, that's a feat for somebody so young.
That's what I try to get home when I do travels. Like people who discover these wonderful countries that the standard of living is comparable to where they came from, or even better, for a fraction of what they were paying just to barely make it where they are. So people don't always have to view retirement as something you do when you're feeble. If you're a world citizen, if you think of yourself as that, and you see an economic opportunity to live your best life in another place that costs a lot less to do it, I try to open those eyes as much as I can.
I know for myself, like before I became nomadic 4 almost 5 years ago, I was traveling once a year for several years, and people had the assumption that I had all this money. I mean, I've always been somewhat of a saver, but it worked in my favor. Instead of eating a $15-20 meal for lunch every day, I brought my lunch. And because I love to travel, it was worth it to do those types of things so that when I decided to travel, I didn't have to stress about things like that.
I hate to say it in our community, sometimes it's this money shaming in terms of even if you don't have like a lot, you have to look like you have a lot just to impress other people. Let's get cliche and say it's not what you have, it's what you spend. If you have less and you can spend significantly less to maintain the same standard of living, which is, it sounds like you were able to do, and what we're all trying to get the word out about. It's not about being a consumer. It's not about having, a new gold chain every week. It's not about buying things that are, that are frivolous that won't last. To me, the most precious things you can have in life are memories. The byproduct of memories are beautiful, like relationships, beautiful personalities that you develop from those memories. I hope you behave a certain way because of what you learn. And if you fill your mind with positive memories, positive lessons that you learn, like in travel is one of the best teachers in the world, I think it'll radiate out from you and people will pick up on that really quickly.
When was the first time that you traveled internationally?
That would have been Thailand. I think I was like 19 or 20. Bangkok first. Yeah, I think I only went to Bangkok. And then I went to Siem Reap, Cambodia, see Angkor Wat after that, which is like literally a 25-minute flight. So I always encourage people, if you go to Thailand, don't miss Cambodia. It's like right there. And Angkor Wat is an incredible feat of engineering. That's my nerdy urban planning engineering brain speaking, but I always encourage people. Always make it a double header. If you go to Thailand, go to Cambodia. I like challenges, so I said, let me just do a 180 in a culture that I'm totally not familiar with. Let me just fly thousands of miles around the world and see what happens.
Now, did you make that trip by yourself?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
Oh, I already had that explorer bug. Like I think in other interviews I talked about, like when I was younger, would like just take my bus money or whatever or allowance and then spend it on the bus and go wind up somewhere in Los Angeles randomly and just explore. That. So I've already gotten over that fear of exploration long ago. So by the time I was ready to do it internationally, I had a great time.
And LA is a great city to do that. I used to share with you, I lived there for a long time. And every area has a different personality, and it's one of those cities I try to explain to people, not in a bad way. It's part of the humor when those of us who have lived there are like, you're from there. You can kind of, in a general sense, get a feel for a person if they say, oh yeah, I live in Echo Park, or I live
Exactly.
downtown, or I live over here. You're like, oh okay,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I might know a
Yeah.
little bit of who you are.
So yeah, you're one of those people. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Trust me. And visitors, it's always tickles me when like people go to, they say, oh, I liked LA, but I didn't like it. It's like, what LA did you go to? There's literally 1,000 of them. So that's the whole beauty of it. The whole joke about LA, it's an old joke. It's like 100 suburbs in search of a city. It's a collage of experiences. It's a collage of neighborhoods. It's a collage of cultures. whatever attracts you the most, that's kind of where people end up in those little neighborhoods and whatever kind of personality they are. So when people say they've been, but they didn't like it, it's like, okay, maybe you went to the one that doesn't speak to you.
What were some of your other interests when you were growing up?
Actually, my dream job growing up was being an architect. I did have that traveling bug too, and I had that greater picture bug, not just a building. So that's kind of what drew me into like urban planning as well. I do little sketches every now and then, so I have that dream of designing a building one day and having it actually built. That was my initial dream job, and as every other kid as well, I wanted to be an Imagineer who designs rides at Disneyland. I sent them letters and everything, had all sketches and dimensions. I learned about the safety regulations for roller coasters, so I would put a whole presentation together. It was cute, I guess. I might have been like 9 or 10. I just had this, I guess, early on this goal of having some kind of career that helps people, whether it's
Okay.
helping them have a good time, giving them a place to live, a place to work, a place to explore. I think maybe that's a recurring theme.
Having that type of vision so young, where do you think that comes from?
My mother says my grandfather, he's a really hiker, explorer kind of guy in Louisiana. If that kind of stuff is genetic, I guess that's where we come from. But I didn't have any immediate inspirations for that. I was a voracious reader. Like back in the old days, people had the Encyclopedia Britannica, like the whole set,
Yeah.
and the Rand McNally maps. I was a kid just like pouring myself into that. I literally had like the maps of LA on my wall in my room. So that's why I never got lost when I would explore the city. I was just like, I say randomly get off on the bus somewhere, but I know exactly where I was and I knew how to get home. So if it's genetic, I got it from my grandfather. But other than that, I just had a curious bug.
You probably knew the city better than most people who are from there and those who have lived there a long time.
Oh yeah, I knew all the traffic patterns long before I got my driver's license
Okay.
and all the routes.
Somebody to call when we're in a traffic jam.
Yeah, I'll tell you how to get home and avoid the freeway. LA is not a small city by any means, but there's so many different options to get where you need to go. LA and Hong Kong, I would say Berlin are the cities that drew me towards urban planning and drew me towards making that as part of my travel experiences as well. Whether I'm hosting trips or exploring on my own, I always look for why cities work and why they don't work, why cities are built the way they are. To me, that's fascinating.
What is your educational background?
I got my bachelor's in business administration. I went to Cal State Long Beach for a few years. I studied architecture. I dabbled, like I mentioned before. I went to Woodbury University in Burbank for like, I don't know, less than a year. That's when I got out of architecture. Ultimately got my master's in urban planning from USC. I used that a little bit in my telecom career. The engineer who designed most of the fiber optic system in Los Angeles for the companies I work for, and also worked with developers to, let's say if a building goes up or is planning to go up, I would work with developers to make sure that our company had everything it needed as far as infrastructure wise. Would also work with them on their speculative development so I can make sure we're already on the street, like we already have our manholes in the street and our conduit or aerial plant already in place to accommodate whatever new thing is coming up. Even to the extent of going to like city planning meetings, being nosy and finding out what's coming up next before it's even approved and getting the jump on it with these developers who are applying. Urban planning was always weaved into my mentality, whether it was staring at maps as a kid or travel to different cities and letting people look at cities from a different point of view, not just a building and taking Instagram photos.
So it's safe to say that Angelinos have you to thank as one of the people who have made the city a better place to live.
No, thank you. If their internet is on, they better thank me for most of LA. I designed the network. So.
Okay. So, with this being a podcast which talks about the Black LGBTQ plus experience, when did you become aware of that part of yourself?
As far as knowing when I was potentially gay, before I knew what the term was, I think probably like 7 or 8.
Okay.
People have their first crush. I think I was like in second grade or something. I didn't really put the words together until I was like in my teens, but I never really like came out. Other than, obviously the articles and the groups I created later, but I never viewed that as a necessity as far as my family, coworkers, whatever. You don't need to announce what you are. So I'm not
That's
gonna
true.
I'm not gonna announce what I am unless you got a problem with it. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't like in the closet or anything. I never dated females, never got married, none of all that. I didn't want to go that route because I didn't really care if people knew I was. I just went about my business, and if they like me for who I am, great. If they don't, I don't need to deal with them anyway.
Just in this conversation and the brief moment that we met, you seem like somebody who's consciously or unconsciously always been grounded within.
I'd say I got that from my mom. She had a very stoic personality, kind of like you pick up now in this interview, but just never got too worried or alarmed about anything. Just always put things in perspective. There's nothing so big that it can't be handled, taken care of one way or another. It's just about how patient you are and how determined you are and how open your mind is to solutions. That determines how severe the issue is. I definitely picked that up from her. Just keeping a level head and always stepping back and taking a look at the bigger picture before acting. I just watched and followed that model.
With you being somebody who's well versed in traveling, visiting over 35 countries, and then what you're doing professionally, what are some of the ways that you're aware of that you have evolved because of those experiences?
Well, on a personal level, yeah, it's learning to be a better listener, like when you're meeting different people around the world, not making assumptions, being open minded, not just about places, but the people who occupy those places. So people just view travel at time from a geographical point of view only. Like I'm going to so and so instead of I'm going to see so and so. So I learned a lot about connecting with people better the more I travel. And just hearing their stories, getting to know people on a personal level. People are all the same in a sense, but there's a lot of differences. I just find those differences fascinating. So that's part of my curiosity thing. That's what drives me to travel more. Different kinds of people, different kinds of cultures, cuisines. I guess you could say I'm a foodie. I love hiking. I love like scenery and nature. I love sailing. It all fed my curiosity bug. I guess if you can say how I changed, it just reinforced what I had already had inside me, made me feel good about that maybe this is the right path to take. There's nothing wrong with somebody who just wants to be grounded. They're happy to be in the same place for their entire life. That's fine, but it helped me learn that it's definitely not me. I like to get out and about, and that's what keeps me going.
Would you say family and friends are surprised at the path or paths that you've taken?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, oh, why are you going there? They don't like us over there. It's like, well, who's they? Who said that? So I like to dispel rumors. I like to like challenge convention. Like if someone says, "Oh, no, you don't want to do that," it's like, okay, well, why? If you say something, I don't just like listen to what's coming out of your mouth. I like to always dig behind the motivation of why they're saying what they're saying because I feel that's more important and, quite frankly, less of a time waster. Let's get to why you're saying it. I think that's more important. I definitely want to keep exploring as much as I can and also giving other people that opportunity to learn about the why behind these places than just the what. You carry that more with you, like when you return home and for the rest of your life. You probably will most likely remember more the people you met who were standing next to a monument that you were taking pictures of, who actually were really cool and you had a nice conversation with, and you went out to drinks with after, than the actual physical place. That's what I want to instill. That's what I'm passionate about.
That's deep. I like that. I always end part of the format of this podcast with asking if you have any final thoughts or insights.
Look out for the second half of 2025. I have some amazing events coming up. I do a group trip to Thailand every year, every November. We're going to the huge Lantern Festival in Chiang Mai. People think Thailand, they think Bangkok all the time, but there's much more to it than that. I got my South Africa trip next spring. We're going to Cape Town Pride, which is my first time actually hosting a group trip during Cape Town Pride, so it should be incredible. Look out for what's coming next. I spoke about why I'm doing what I do, why I started it. Now I'm in the execution phase. The second half of 2024 and all throughout 2025 is to get even more people to share this journey with me. Get on bgltravelers.com, join our email list, get on bagtravel.net, keep yourself updated. And Instagram would be B.A.G Travel Group. Also, Black, Gay, and Lesbian Travelers on Instagram. Facebook, same, Black, Gay, and Lesbian Travelers.
Again, thank you so much for joining me, and
Thank
yeah,
you.
definitely look forward to spreading this out to my growing community. So thank you.
For sure. It was a pleasure, Eric.
Thank you for spending time with us. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, comment, and subscribe. Share with your friends too. You can also follow us on Instagram at Our Black Gay Diaspora and on Twitter at BLK Gay Diaspora. Until next time.